Hello all, and welcome to section 11.2 for Fundamentals of Math. This lesson is called Absolute Value. Today we're going to learn about something that's called absolute value. Alright, absolute value might be a kind of a new concept for you, but overall it's not too difficult to understand. So let's go ahead and jump into this with getting a definition. Now, there are two main ways that most people think about absolute value. Both of them are true. All right, and this is way number one. Absolute value is a distance. Absolutely true. Let's get what I did there. Absolutely true. The absolute value is a distance. All right, if I went ahead and drew like a quick little number line right here, and I put 0 right in the middle, and I put the integers 1, 2, and 3, and -1, -2, and -3 on this number line. The integers 3 and -3 are each 3 units from 0 on the number line. They're both just 3 digits away. All right, from here to there, it is 3 units, and from here to there, 1, 2, 3 units. They have the same distance from 0 on the number line, therefore they have the same absolute value. Same absolute value. Okay, so that's one helpful way to look at this. If we're going to go ahead and speak about these things, absolute value. Well, the absolute value of a number x, and x can be any number, that just represents any possible number that you can think of. Right? So x just represents any number. Its distance from 0 on the number line. It is indicated by this symbol, where we would have 2 straight lines, and it is read as the absolute value of x. So this would be considered, if I read this out loud, would be the absolute value of 5, or the absolute value of -2, or the absolute value of 13,439. All right. All of these values are considered absolute values because these are the official symbols that indicate absolute values. Some distances are always positive or 0. The absolute value of any number is never negative. So a fancy way of saying that is that absolute value is always going to be positive when it is simplified. So that brings us to way number 2. I mean, if you want to go ahead and pause this and write this down, I wouldn't be mad. But go ahead. But after you write this down, we're going to go ahead and talk about the second way that people often view absolute value. So way number 2 that we should kind of think about absolute value. Absolute value is a machine that turns everything positive. And here's what I mean by that. You can take any number like -5 and put it in the absolute value machine, and it will turn it positive. -5 becomes +5. Or if I take -18, the machine turns it positive, so now it's +18. What if I already had a positive number, like let's say +2? Well, the absolute value of +2 is just 2. It's a machine that turns everything positive. And if it's already positive, well, the machine doesn't even have to do anything. It already did its job for it. So one way that we can think about it is a distance from 0 on a number line. Absolutely true. The absolute value is also like a machine that turns everything positive. If it's negative, it becomes positive. If it's positive, it stays positive. All right, it is a machine of positivity. Machine of positivity. Okay, so let's look at example 1 from your book. Find the absolute value of -14. Well, if the absolute value machine turns everything positive, the absolute value of negative 14 is just positive 14. It's not too bad, right? Let's look at a few more. What is the absolute value of 51? Well, 51 is already positive, so it has to turn everything positive, stays positive. The absolute value of 51 is just 51. All right, so just a reminder, find the absolute values. All right, these will always, that's wrong, always be positive. Okay. As long as we're just talking about absolute value. What about this one? The absolute value of negative 18. Well, it turns it positive. What's the positive version of negative 18? Just 18. What is the absolute value of 0? Well, there is no positive or negative value of 0. We're just going to say 0. That's not too bad, right? Okay, cool. Absolute values can be used as grouping symbols as well. Do the order of operations, so we're going to go ahead and highlight that because that's important for us. We're going to use the order of operations inside the absolute value sign first, and then find the absolute value before simplifying further. All right, so just a reminder that the absolute value is a grouping symbol, and a grouping symbol is a part of our order of operations. So my suggestion before you start working on any problems like this is you write the order of operations at the top of your page. You guys remember we discussed our order of operations as GEMDAS, where I would go ahead and draw an arrow underneath those two. And this reminds us that if we ever have grouping symbols, first we have to simplify those. And the absolute value sign is absolutely a grouping symbol. So we have to simplify everything on the inside of here first. So should we subtract first or multiply first? Well, order of operations says that any multiplication or division has to be done left to right first before we can add or subtract. So we would have to go ahead and multiply first. This would be the absolute value of 52 minus 40, because 8 times 5 is 40, is equal to or over 10. We haven't simplified this whole thing yet. We have to go ahead and subtract. So we have to do the absolute value of 52 minus 40. 52 minus 40 is just going to be 12. And we still haven't used that absolute value sign yet. Now we can go ahead and simplify. The absolute value of 12 is just still 12 over 10. And if this reduces, we're going to get 10 can go into 12 one time with 2 left over. And that can reduce even lower to 1 and 1/5. Alright, so problems like this, they just happen step by step, one step at a time. We started with our absolute value, we had to simplify on the inside. We multiplied before we could subtract, and we got 40. We now subtracted to simplify the inside of our absolute value sign, and we got 12. The absolute value of 12 is 12, and 12 divided by 10 was an improper fraction, so we had to go lower. Let's go ahead and look at another example. This time, we're going to go ahead and try to simplify this guy. Now, what does it mean if we ever have a number right next to an absolute value symbol? Now, this is a little different than what we've seen before, but this just means multiplication. If you ever have a number right next to an absolute value, this means multiplication. Multiplication. So our order of operations, again, always suggests you write it at the top of your page before you start applying it. Should we multiply first or add first? Well, we should multiply left to right. In this case, 3 times the absolute value of 8. This is going to be the same thing as 3 times 8, because the absolute value of 8 is just 8. It's a machine that turns everything positive. We multiply 3 times 8 is going to be 24, and 24 plus 4 is 28. Okay, so we're just following our order of operations. All right, we simplified our grouping symbol first. Our absolute value of negative 8 becomes positive 8, and then from there we just multiply and then add. Cool. Perform the operations. All right, if I had to go ahead and perform these operations, I need to go ahead and just start with my order of operations. Before we start, we should always write our order of operations. GEMDAS with an arrows to remind us to go from left to right if we ever have these operations. The absolute value of negative 10 is just going to be positive 10 plus 4 times 9. Should we add first or multiply first? Order of operations says we multiply or divide before any addition or subtraction, so we have to go ahead and multiply. 4 times 9 is 36, and 10 plus 36 is 46. Cool? Alright, well, what about this one? This one has an absolute value on the top and on bottom. We have to simplify both of those first before we can apply any other operations. So let's go ahead and simplify the inside of this absolute value symbol. 8 minus 5 is 3, so this becomes the absolute value of 3 plus 2 over the absolute value of negative 4. Now, we can simplify further. The absolute value of 3 is 3 plus 2 over the absolute value of negative 4 is just going to be positive 4 because the absolute value always makes it positive. We can simplify here. 3 plus 2 is 5 over 4. Now, this is an improper fraction. If we ever get confused on improper fraction, we can always try to divide our way out of it. We can say 4 can go into 5 one time. And with how many left over? What we would have 1 left over. So that becomes our numerator, and our denominator is the outside number. So this answer should be 1 1/4. Alright, that's our lesson on working with absolute values. Just a kind of a recap for you guys. Absolute value is the distance from 0 to number line. It is also a machine that turns everything positive. If it was already positive, it stays positive. And if it's negative, it turns positive. It's a machine of positivity. And absolute value is a grouping symbol. So if we ever have work to do to simplify in there, you have to do that first. And then we follow our order of operations to finish up a problem. Alright, that's it. Have fun on your homework. See ya.